some of you guys are still trying to break free of the rat race. I encourage you guys to get the right advice. There is tons of books and stuff out there. The one that did it for me was this book, Rich Dad Poor Dad. This, though, is the beginner book, right? This is the first I think you should read. But his follow-up book, this is the magic. This is the formula. Cashflow Quadrant. This is a story. This is a manual. This is light reading. This is a manual. It's a lot more descriptive, a lot more technical. When you read this and understand this, I've heard it from so many people. This is what flipped the switch in their brain. This is what got them to understand, to start building. Hey guys, Bud from the Time Compass Show here in my balcony. Got my beautiful garden behind me. Yeah, new podcast. We bring on entrepreneurs, business owners, business retirees, business leaders to talk about business because it can be really dangerous out there. And we want to share good advice with you guys and help you guys. And by the way, this video is just so you guys get to know me better. I feel like I do a lot of interviews. I'm asking them questions, and you guys get to spend a ton of time getting to know my guest. And I'm probably like 10% of the show, right, of the interview. And there's not really a chance for you guys to get to know me. And so I thought, hey, I'll start making some videos so you guys get to know me. And by the way, I want to throw this out here early. We love comments. I don't know if you know anything about podcasters, but your comments, they can be the motivation. It's a lot of work trying to do a podcast right, trying to make it grow. It might look easy, two guys having a chat, right? But countless hours learning to edit, editing videos, putting them out there, making the shorts, writing descriptions, writing titles, hashtags, trying to make it grow. It's getting it scheduled, getting it rescheduled in case somebody can't make it. It's a lot of work. It's a lot more work than it looks like, making it all happen. And so I've made a little bit of money from the podcast, actually. We've got a couple of good sales coming in. So that's happy. That's great. So that's obviously part of what it's there for. But what's more motivating than numbers on a screen going up is knowing that you guys appreciate it, knowing that this is helping somebody, um, getting any type of positive comment and feedback, and also knowing what you want to see more of. I could invite on any business leader, but without your comments, I don't know what is more valuable to you guys, what is more interesting to you guys. Do you want to hear more about silver trading and trading and options, which is something I'm going to be adding to the channel moving forward because I'm getting back in the trading. I think there's a huge, huge opportunity in metals and defense stocks and other things. So we'll be talking about that. Whether you'd rather hear somebody from a Fortune 500, or you'd rather hear a small mom and pop, or you want to hear from a startup, or you want to hear from a business leader, retiree, or a coach. These are all the types of guests that I'm already bringing on. And I would love for your comment down below in this video, just telling me what you want to see more of. So I want to give a little bit of background on my journey. I'm 43 years old. I haven't done everything perfectly. Not everything has gone right. Made a lot of mistakes. And that gives me the opportunity to teach from the mountain as somebody who made the mistakes and know how devastating they can be financially, emotionally. Stress, lost all my hair. No, I'm kidding. I lost my hair early, but I got a lot of gray hairs now because a couple years back I tried to do a startup and I thought I had a plan. I thought I had the money and the capital to do it myself. Hired the wrong manager, hired the wrong partner, brought him in. And as things tend to happen, if you grew up in a safe environment, you're not always, you got too much hopium. I was thinking about this the other day, today. It's great if you have a lot of hope, a lot of conviction, a lot of positive energy and positive attitude. You just want to get things done. You're going to be attracted and end up meeting lots of great people, kind of like yourself. But also, you can be blindsided against the people who are lying with the intent to defraud you. And, too much hopium can make you high, is what I came up with. And so I was thinking about this. I've seen a couple comments that are like, they're upset, they're frustrated because what they hear doesn't apply to them, or they think that don't apply to them. That only applies to rich people. I can't start a business. I would leave a job for 5,000. People don't stay just because of company culture, that type of stuff. And look, I get it. In fact, I'd love to know more. You can comment down below. Tell me where you're from. Tell me your station in life, because I want to know my listeners better and have content for you. And, we're all dealt different hands. I had a really good childhood up until I was about 10. And then things deteriorated from there, with parents, divorce, alcoholism, less life advice, more yelling and frustration, and definitely not knowing how to handle that. So I didn't have any good jobs. I think that's an interesting story, maybe. I worked, the jobs I could find. I wasn't getting the career that would then make me six figures. I never made six figures in a job working for somebody else. I never had a great office that I really enjoyed working at. Looking back, I had a lot more opportunity thrown at me, and I completely missed that opportunity. Like it just went just just right over my head, because I didn't have any of that guidance. I didn't have an older figure in my life giving advice. And so I'm hoping that this podcast can be some of that. I'm at a stage in my life where I'd love to give back and help people. I've always liked helping people. I'll tell a quick story here. It's in my podcast as well. But I used to work for a big theme park in Orlando, Florida, and they had an event New Year's Eve, and the parks were closing midnight. And this guy was stumbling, and there's no crowds around at this point. I'm packing up carts and stanchions and putting stuff to take underground in the tunnels. And this guy is like stumbling, clearly drunk, but very happy. And he comes over to me and he's like, "Oh, this has been the best night of my life. Here, I want you to have this." And it's a $20 bill. And keep in mind, this is roughly 25, 27 years ago. Uh, so $20 is a huge tip back then, you know? And part of my position was what's called a non-tipping position. I'm not allowed to accept tips. I'm not a bartender. I'm not a server. And so that there's no, they don't want a tipping culture where people are standing around begging for money or waiting for a tip, and creating a nasty experience. I'm in my position not allowed to take tips. And so I say, "No, sir, thank you very much." And he is just insistent, like, "No, no, 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 no. This is the best night of my life. You got to have this." And he starts shoving it into my shirt pocket. I wore a uniform, I had a shirt pocket. And at this point, it's uncomfortable, because if I take it out of my pocket and give it back to him, he could, drunk people, they can be a bit bipolar. They can be a bit wild on both ends, right? So I feel like it would be uncomfortable to force the money back into him. So I'm kind of looking around. There's no managers around. And I say, "Thank you so much. Have a great night." He goes, "This is the best night of my life." And I don't know, it sparked something in my brain that I just realized that people will spend the most amount of money when they're desperate, obviously, but they'll also spend tons of money, and they'll be happy doing it when they're happy, when they're really happy. Just to add on to that, another story, I was working at a large hardware chain in America, and you go to the break room, eat your lunch. I hated eating lunch in there because it's a big store. We have over 200, maybe 300 employees. So there's always people in there. And all they do, I swear, the people in there, they just complain. They complain, 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 just 30, 40, 50 minutes of just nonstop complaining. And I really didn't like it. And I picked up on one guy was complaining about how much his groceries were. The groceries keep going up, inflation goes up, yada, yada. I spent, almost $200 this week or something to take care of my family and kids, and etc. Then the next day, he's bragging about going out and partying on Friday night, and buying a round of drinks for everybody, and spending over $200 in a single night. And, that juxtaposition just threw me off. It was so funny. I mean, it's funny now, but it's so real that people can complain about the things that they need to buy for $200 that's going to last them an entire week. And yet they'll happily brag about spending $200, because what's the difference? They're both food, by the way, right? He's talking about buying food at the grocery store, complaining that's $200 for a week of food versus one night of food for $200. And so what's the difference? The difference is he's happy, right? The difference is an event. It's a memory. He's with his friends. He wants to show off, and people will just spend more naturally. And so I've always wanted to help people. I want to be happy. I want to be around happy people. And I have no doubt that you can make as much money doing that. And in my philosophy, there's only two ways to make money in this world, and that's coercion, taking it from people. And coercion can be a mugger taking your money, putting a gun in your face and saying, "Hey, give me your wallet." That's one version of coercion. Another version of coercion is a lawyer going after a company that did something wrong and saying, "Hey, you got to take care of this employee or this person that you hurt or that you stole from." And you force them through the courts and you take that money back and you give it to the people that deserve it. So that's two sides of coercion, but I don't want to be on either of those. It seems like a nasty environment to be in. Obviously, the other way is cooperation, right? I cooperate. You want milk? I have milk for sale. We negotiate on a price, or I set a price. You don't like my price? You go buy it someplace else, or you can complain. You can negotiate, buy more milk. I can maybe give you a discount, right? And that's cooperation. Should be both parties are happy to do business together. And of course, you can go even happier. You can work in a theme park. You can make movies. You can start a podcast and try and help people. And that's my version of it, right? Cooperation. I want to cooperate. I want to be in cooperation and I want to be around happy people. And then this last year, actually, I figured out I really love talking to business owners. If I could I've been 43 years old. I'm still figuring out what I want to do with my life. What is the best career path for me? What are my strengths and weaknesses? All these things they talk about when you're applying for jobs or in your 20s and even in high school. Still figuring it out. But what I figured out is that I thought I was an introvert. I thought I didn't like talking to people. Turns out I just don't like talking to the wrong types of people. But I really love talking to business owners because they're smart. They've had to handle a lot. They have a lot of adversity, but they don't always share it. They're always putting a good foot forward or trying to, but they have to deal with the tax man. They have to deal with compliance and laws and theft and betrayals and everything. I mean, they've got life set. They got the life dial set to hard mode for sure, and yet they keep on trucking. And then the last thing I love about them is when you get them to open up, they're really honest. They can be really honest about politics and about the world and about giving advice. When you break through that barrier, right? They can be the most. Some of them are just the most honest to begin with because they don't have all the strings attached. Nobody's going to be able to fire them because of what they said. They have hundreds of customers, not which can hold them back sometimes, but they don't have one boss and some coworkers who could throw them under the bus. When you own your own business, that's the beautiful thing. It gives you the freedom to be more of who you are, say what you want to say, do what you want to do, because it's your business. You can run it and you can speak your mind freely. And I think we need more of that more than ever before. I was born in the early 80s, and I can say we kind of took it for granted how much freedom there was, freedom of speech, what you could say, and the jokes you could tell. And yeah, some people got upset, but that was part of the process. That was part of the culture, part of the environment was that this is freedom of speech, and it's better to have it than to not have it. Some of you guys are still trying to break free of the rat race. I encourage you guys to get the right advice. All right. There is tons of books and stuff out there. The one that did it for me was this book, Rich Dad Poor Dad. This helped a lot of people, especially my age, my generation. Still a good book. Very affordable. I'll put a link to it down below. This, though, is the beginner book, right? This is the first book I think you should read. This is like gets the pot boiling, gets you percolating. But his follow-up book, this is the magic. This is the formula. Cash flow quadrant. This is the different. This is a story. This is a manual. This is light reading. This is a manual. Okay. This is literally more. I mean, you can just look at it. Maybe 10, 20% thicker, maybe 30% thicker. And this is very easy read, very light read. It's like reading a story. This is like reading a manual. It's a lot more descriptive, a lot more technical. But when you read this and understand this, I've heard it from so many people. This is what flipped the switch in their brain. This is what got them to understand to start building. And you can look down here. He's got the ESBI quadrants: employee, self-employed, business, and investor, right? And he said, most of us start over here as the employee. Then we moved down to the S, which could also stand for specialist, doctors, lawyers, and stuff. But eventually you want to go to business. I mean, he says business, he has a different definition. Big business, business that can run itself without you being there. If you have to be there every day, then you're down in the S quadrant. Me running the podcast, by the way, I'm down in the S quadrant. Okay. I tried to move myself to the B quadrant. I got destroyed from fraud. I got defrauded by my partners. I didn't lose any investors' money. I didn't take any investors' money. So I didn't lose any investors' money, which is a good thing. But it definitely set me back. It definitely shocked me. It took 2 years to fully resolve itself. I never got any of the money back. I didn't get really any apologies from any of the people that were a part of it or that knew about it. That's the most damaging thing for me, is that so many people knew about it and said nothing and warned me about nothing. And that's really damaging to your ego, your ability to trust people, your how you rate your ability to detect evil and detect lies. Am I just super naive? Am I super gullible? I had a lot of those thoughts back 2 years ago because I operated with so much hope and good intentions. These were employees that I gave salaries to. I signed their checks. I talked to them every day. I saw them every day. When they're sick, I went to their house and brought them medicine, and they didn't. I saw I didn't have a big gallon, 5 gallon of water, so I went and brought them water. And those are still the same people that ripped me off. And I hope they get everything they deserve. That's all I can say. I hope they get everything they deserve. And I gotta just let it go and just keep moving. And that's hard. That's a hard step. So anybody going through this, I would love to hear your comments, not to make this a pity party, but it's okay to share that information because I feel like that's missing. And I know I'm jumping topics. I do that. But here's the thing, you know, I went from E to S, S to I. You can say that with trading. Trading's very active. I'd almost call it an S, specialist trading versus investing. Then I tried to move myself from S to B and start a big business. I thought I had the tools. I read so many books, 4 Hour Work Week, Napoleon Hill. I can't even list them all. And the thing that was missing in all of these books that part of my podcast tries to address is all these missing elements, which is the human element. Who can you trust? How do you set up systems where there's real checks and balances? This is really big problem, not just for small businesses, but huge businesses. Government corruption is through the roof this decade. I feel like it's probably this millennium, this 100 years, and maybe some people would say forever. It's been a huge problem, but I don't think we realized how big a problem it was until recently. And now it's really coming out with the internet. Thankfully, with X.com, I think it's your best source of news to get both sides. If you're not getting both sides or you don't like what you see on X, change who you follow. You're not following the right people. The algorithm's going to give you what you tell it to give you. So go follow people like Nick Shirley doing good work. See both sides and then make better decisions because I promise you, you're looking at me. Here I am in Bali. I wasn't going to talk too much about being in Bali on my podcast. I didn't feel like it was important or even unique and special. I'm surrounded by hundreds or if not thousands of influencers who come here and take pictures of their food and pictures of them at the beach and working out in the gym, etc. And, to me, it's just a normal, everyday, constantly surrounded by it. But maybe on the business side, older side, and for my viewers, maybe that's unique. And so I decided to take this video in my garden and show you and lean into the Bali side of things. So why is that? I moved to Vietnam for a job. Then I moved back to the States. I had Airbnbs and went well for a while. Then they didn't. Then I could either rebuild or I could just move overseas. I had enough cash flow coming in with other real estate stocks and other things. I did my analysis of my finances. By the way, here's a really good tip. Write this down. For those of you who are on your journey and you want to break free, I really believe that if you work hard at spending less and just saving and investing properly, I really believe you can break free of the rat race and be retired, semi-retired, living wherever you want to live in 5 years. In 5 years. And that's without any big risk. That's without winning lotteries and doing startups and starting big businesses or anything like that. I think if you just squirrel away enough savings, if you just reduce your spending and you learn to invest at a medium level and getting a 10 or percent higher without losing it, and you're able to save 20% a year, then I really think that in 5 years you can figure out how to go from being a job or two jobs working for other people to working part-time and living wherever you want to live, including Bali. Uh, and so that's what I did the math. And so here's what you want to do. What you want to write down for a month. Write down every single expense that you have. Put it in your phone. We all have phones now, right? Put in a note. Everything. I mean, literally everything. Parking, $2. Gas, X dollars. Rent, this dollars. Electricity, food, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I did that when I was living in Las Vegas, and I did it only for a month. Some people do it longer, and that's great. I did it for a month, and then I looked at it, and then put that into major categories. Need, like you must have. Groceries, you have to have it, but also write down the groceries you don't have to have. Chocolate, you don't have to have it. Okay. You're just making categories. Make some categories. Eating out is part of your entertainment budget. Netflix, movies, video games, board games, going out and hang out with your friends, going to dinner, eating out, all part of your entertainment budget. And then under entertainment, you put in food. So do this in a spreadsheet. But for a month, write down every single expense that you have in your phone. And then at the end of the month, categorize it, organize it, look at it, and then see what you can learn. I was blown away. I had no idea. I promise you, I had no idea. I was spending more on eating out and food than I was on rent. And I didn't even know it. And I was 31 years old at the time. I had no idea I was doing that because I had never bothered to write it down and add it up. And I was a cheap eater. I'm still a cheap eater. I would go get the dollar burgers, or I would drive to North Las Vegas and get the Thursday $10 steak platter. I would do these types of things with my girlfriend at the time. We were not big spenders. We didn't go to the fancy restaurants. And yet somehow, because we were eating out so often, I was spending more on eating out and food than I was on rent. And that blew my mind. And I said, okay, that needs to stop. I want to reach my goals. I want to save more money. I want to invest more money. This is where I need to cut back on because it's not necessary at all. You buy yourself a little hibachi grill, buy meat. You can still eat delicious meats. Buy yourself some teriyaki sauce, some Korean sauce, some other sauces. Throw it on the grill, grill it up and eat it. Take it out. We do that here, by the way, in Bali. I take my grill out to a river the other day. We sat by the river, we grilled, we ate our food, we swam in the river. We paid some gas, we paid for the meat. We didn't pay anybody any tips, any taxes, or anything else like that, and just save a ton of money and still had a wonderful time, a truly wonderful time. We go to the rice fields and we sit in the little pergolas that are there, and again, grill our food, have a picnic, and it's great. Bring the dogs. This type of stuff, you can still have a lot of fun. And if you're in America, I know not everyone is in Bali. If you're in America, you do the same thing. There's national parks all over the USA that you can buy an annual park pass. It used to be $200, probably more now. That lets you get into all the parks for a year. And you can do that. You can camp. And so just do that type of stuff. Make the effort to do that more often, save the money, and see how fast it adds up. So that's what I want you to write down and try and do. If you do it, or if you're going to do it, comment down below. Say, hey, buddy, I'm going to do this. I'm going to try that. I'm going to just for 1 month, 30 days, I'm going to track every single expense that I have. Then I'm going to also multiply those expenses if they carry forward. If your rent is due every month, your cell phone due is every month, you know that you can times that by 12. And then you can look at your food and you can times that by 12, or say, no, this is a little bit high, it's a little bit low this month for these reasons, and figure out where your money's really going. That's step one. Step two is figuring out how much can you really save. And when I say save, I just mean take and either buy gold or put it into a savings account, or even better, a money market account with Charles Schwab or something like that. It doesn't have to be Charles Schwab. Earning a little bit of interest while you make your plan on how to escape the rat race. Okay. So that was step one, is just figure out where you are. Step two is make that plan. Step three is do the research. Don't just run out there and start trading today or investing today or starting a business today or a podcast or hustle. They all have their own challenges. They all have their own problems that you have to solve. And if you're not going to be good at solving them, then they're probably not for you. And so this is step 4. And this is my recommendation that I give to my younger self, if I could, and to anybody else who's ever asked the question. I say 6 months of research. This is a hot point because if you spend a year, 2 years, 3 years doing the research and never starting your business, time to wake up, you have analysis paralysis. And 2 categories: those that pulled the trigger too fast and those who never pulled the trigger at all. And of those 2, if you could choose, it's really your personality. You're probably born with it more than anything. But if you could somehow choose which to be, you should be the type that pulls the trigger too fast, because those people will keep pulling the trigger until eventually something hits, and then that gains momentum, and then they will have financial success and they will do well. The people who have paralysis analysis never seem to break free until they change their methods. But if you could be in between, if you could have the diligence and the discipline to do it correctly, I think the 6 months is a really good sweet spot because it's not so long that you get bored with the idea. It's not so long that you get stuck in analysis because you're not going to know everything before you start trading or investing or real estate or Airbnb or podcasting or whatever it is that you're going to do to help make more money. You're never going to know it all. You're going to learn as part of the job, but also you don't have to jump ship right away. Funny story. Well, funny for me because I lost money on it, but I hired a team out of Ukraine before the war to make a video game for me. And there was a really good producer on that team. I really liked him and enjoyed talking to him. And he understood the vision of the game that I was going to build. And then one month he just disappeared. And it turns out he read the 4-hour work week. He loved it so much that he quit his job right away. Then he went to go apply the 4-hour work week. He moved and tried to start some sort of online business, and he completely failed at it. And then he had to go back, and instead of working in the game industry, which he loved, he ended up working for the banks because that's the job that he could get, and he needed to get a job right away. So that's where this piece of advice actually comes from. Pick a target. I've met tons of people that say, I'm going to flip houses. Anyway, I want to tell another little story here. And this is really good advice for those of you who want to go into real estate. If you want to go into real estate, you don't need to spend $20,000 on a course, although you could. I know several successful people because once they commit that amount of money, they are committed to making that money back. And so if you have the means, by all means, go ahead and do so. But if you want to do it at a cheaper way, or if you simply don't have the $10,000 or $20,000 that some of these gurus charge you, and be very careful about which guru you work with, what you want to do is go look up a REIA, REIA, Real Estate Investor Association. They're all over the country. They're not all good, but they're all over the country. Almost every major city has one. You might have to drive to your nearest big city to go to one. They typically have fees of, back then, $10 to $50 a month. Now, probably $25 to $100 a month after adjusting for the inflation, right? This is a great way to know who your local flippers are, wholesalers, everyone that's related to the business, whether they're selling paint or insurance or mortgages, etc. They're all going to go to these RIAs to meet happy real estate flippers like yourself and sell you their services. But as well as you'll meet other flippers, and you can find mentors there, and you can find partners and work together and learn together. And you can do so much cheaper. And so I used to go to that at 25 years old. That was part of my plan for escaping the rat race. And I went for several months, and I got to see behind the scenes. I learned a lot from that experience behind the scenes. And I remember going to these RIA and then talking to people and then finding out what their plan is. And then some guy would come in and they'd give a speech and they would sell a program, and then their plan would change. They're like, well, that sounds even better than my plan. And so they change to that. And then next month, another guru comes in and gives their talk, and, you could buy his course, and their plan changes again. and on and on and on and on. And now they've spent, they've bought half or more of the courses that have come through, $2,000, $5,000, $10,000 each. Now they've racked up expenses $20,000 to $25,000, and they haven't even flipped one house a year later. And so this goes back to, don't keep chasing the shiny objects. You're always going to find or see a greener pasture. You're always going to think that over there they're doing something better and it makes more money, or if it's not making more money, it's easier. And what I'm doing is really hard and I'm wasting all my time, yada, yada, yada. Number one, they all work. All these gurus work. All these programs work. Every month, you could keep chasing the shiny bauble of what you're hearing next. But the real truth is, all of these programs are good enough, and all of these programs will work if you do the work. And I feel like it's the same in most businesses. And so you think, well, what course do I do? What business do I start? What investment vehicle do I get into? That's why I say, just save. Just save and do research for 6 months. You will learn a lot in 6 months. You will also be saving money, hopefully every month. If you can only save, for example, $200 a month, well, in 6 months, you'll have $1,200. That's going to be a lot more to put into whatever you want to start, whether it's a podcast or a show or investing in real estate or investing in stocks. And you say, buddy, I don't have, you can't invest in real estate with $1,200 or $12,000 even. You need $250,000 to do it. That's not really true. Once you start leveraging other people's money, and there's a lot of people that want to invest, doesn't mean they should invest with you just because you asked for it. But if you're doing the research, if you're planning all of the steps, and if you're very active in the market, you're talking to every realtor that you can, and you're talking to every for sale by owner that you can, and you're tracking all of these things, you are going to have what I call your finger on the pulse of the market. And that's going to give you the confidence to finally see what is a really good deal. And when you have the really good deal, you can go approach it, negotiate, get an option for it for 30 days, or tell the owner, hey, look, I really want to buy your house. I'm going to flip it up. This is how much I think we can pay you because I got to make money. But I got to go get the investors involved. And for me to get the investors involved, I need a note from you. I need an agreement from you that you're going to give me 30 days to go raise the capital and talk to investors, right? It's called an option, but you don't have to say the word option to them. You just say, I need 30 days. I need an agreement for 30 days that you won't sell it to anybody else while I go raise the capital. Once you have that deal and you've done all of this research and you really have your finger on the pulse and you know the market, going to find the investor will be a lot easier. If you just try to go find the investors, but you don't have a deal, the investor is like, are you a fraud? They're not going to trust you because you just don't deserve the trust. And I use the example of real estate, but that could be for any type of business that you want to start. Okay. And it can be for any amount of money. So within your skill set. All right. So my throat's getting a little bit dry. I've already talked for 35 minutes. I hope this has been a good introduction video. I'm going to do another one of these soon. And then I'll tell you why I have this amazing garden and why I chose to film inside this garden and what it has to do with retirement and breaking free of the rat race. So until then, guys, thank you so much for watching. I'm looking forward to seeing your comments. Even if I just get 1 or 2 comments, that is going to make my day and continue to give me the motivation to keep recording and editing, which is the part that's a bit tedious, and to keep putting it out there. And I look forward to it so much. It means so much. It means the world. If this video is adding value to anyone's life and helping to spark any creativity or motivate you to get out of the rat race, or simply letting you vent through the frustrations that you've gone through so that you can then move on with your life. I truly have a lot of love for everyone in the world and wish the best for everyone in the world. And I think we get more of what we put out. And I think people will get what they deserve, good and bad. And I hope this video helps you, and I hope that you'll keep coming back. Thank you so much. God bless.